This is the first of the 4 table toppers that I began work on the very back of it. So I'm preparing to use this black fusible interfacing. It will be the way that I get my applique prepared to stitch onto the back of the table topper. So the way that works for me is I cut out fusible interfacing, I stitch it right sides together, and then cut an opening in the center back of the interfacing and flip it to the right side out. I made a mistake on this one, and I did not have the glue dots facing the printed side. So right there the glue dots are on the outside, and I had meant for them to be on the inside, so that when I stitched it down and turned it out, right sides out, the glue dots on the black interfacing would have been able to hold it to the canvas. And it didn't really end up being an issue. I just used a glue stick for that part. But I will say that I do intend to add some of this interfacing to my stock in my sewing room. It is by far my favorite of the 4 that I made, and I didn't have enough to use it for the other 3. Now that it's been stitched all the way around, I'm trimming excess seam allowance. I'm going to use my pinking shears, and I'm going to trim the entire seam allowance using the pinking shears. I did show an alternate way there with regular scissors, but I wanted the heart to turn out really pretty, and pinking shears will do that for you because it allows the fabric to flare around the curves and into the curves. They're a great sewing room tool. So get into that little point there, and then pull the 2 apart, cut into the interfacing only, and turn the applique out. And if I had done it the way I had intended to, the glue dots would now be on the outside, and I could use that to press to my canvas the fabric I'll actually be doing the applique onto. I'm using my turning tool to make it all nice and pretty. Carefully poke out the corners and the curves. Smooth it out with your hands before you get busy and start doing the applique. I was very happy with the way it turned out. I like it. I think it looks nice. I now have all of the elements for my table topper here, with the exception of the Warm and Natural, and I'm just going to size the backing. I'm just marking the corners so that I'll have guides for cutting. Since each one of the table toppers is slightly different size, they're not all identical, and I didn't really want to waste fabric if I needed a smaller piece. So I'm just using my pinking shears, trimming out the size I need, getting it ready to put together, trimming out the edges. There's a little unevenness right there. And by the time I finished this project, everything fit really well. I was quite pleased. My heart shape is ready to be appliqued. It's very smooth. It turned out perfect. I love the fabric. I love the whole thing. So next up, I am going to square up the flimsy here that I'm working on right here. I'm just doing it my own way. I know there are far better ways to square up a pieced flimsy, but for me this works. I'm just using these clips to keep the cut edge along that top together. And once I get that where I want it, I'm going to fold this in half, like so, and get the cut edges and the final stitched edges lined up. Using that mat, that gray and white mat, I can line it up along the left folded edge on a line, and then the same thing across that bottom two folded edges. I will take my Omni Grid and then just make sure that everything I'm going to trim off will be even when it's been cut off. And I am lining up the Omni Grid on a line. So I just use a rotary cutter, cut that raggedy edge off, and because the fabric is folded, I was able to cut all four. Well, there's only one. Actually, there are two edges, but I only had to cut one time. I've captured all of those raw raggedy edges. Okay, now I'm just going to size up the back canvas piece, trim off excess just by using my flimsy as a guide. Pulling it toward me, repositioning, and then just trimming off that excess. Okay. And I know that a quilter would never do it this way, but I'm not quilting, and I am not a quilter. I'm just creating a table topper. Okay, now I'm going to find the center of the back just by folding and finger pressing. Take that heart applique shape and line up the center down the middle of the heart, and then equally distribute the excess fabric, the canvas fabric. So it's 2.5 inches on the right, and miraculously this time it was 2.5 inches on the left. I like where it is positioned, and I'm going to pin it in place with just some glass head pins. They are probably my favorite glass head pins. They are the gauge is small enough that they are very sharp and they slip through fabric very, very easily. I don't have any issues. They're not too heavy. They don't leave damaging holes or evidence that they were even there. So I get that pinned. I did use a glue stick on the back of my applique, even though I didn't show that part, and it's just a plain Elmer's glue, school glue stick. I went all the way around the heart edge, kind of pressed it down with my hands, and then I'm pinning. Okay, here I am at the machine. Now, to be honest with you here, I'm holding the camera just in front of me. It's not really secure, so I realize this is blurry, not the best, but at this particular point that's all I have. So I'm doing a floral embroidery stitch that is built into my sewing machine. It's a Bernina 1080 special. It's about 21 years old, and it does this beautiful stitch. And for this particular table topper, I think it is an ideal stitch. I like the way that it works. I like the way that it looks. And at the very end, it just turned out so pretty. And I am using the thread that I'm using on Jessica's skirt, so I may end up having to change the color. I don't know, but this one is completed in that thread color. before I get into that, in typical Laurie fashion, I wanted to show you guys this box that came with the Bernina. Oops, there's a foot screw in here. So there it is. It is one of these that fits on the back of the feet, and it did not come off of that. Oh, I think I see. Foot number 35 right here is missing its little screw. So I'll put this back. It has been reapplied. Okay, so here is this pre-molded interior. You can see this is where your sewing machine oil would go. Needle case. Looks like a... I didn't think so. There might be a smaller seam ripper that goes in there. Might be this one. Yeah. So, as you can see, this is a Bernina, a little teeny tiny one, and I believe this is the one that fits in here. But I like to keep it handy next to me. This buttonhole foot right here fits into the box right there. I think you can see that. And there's just all sorts of little bits and bobs that fit into this lower part. And then this tray slips right on top of that. Nice and tidy. There's a spot for a bobbin. And then on each side, as well as right here, we have a place for extra bobbins. And then it just closes right up. And it fits to your sewing machine. It has the capacity to just become part of the back of the sewing machine. And as you're sewing, if you need something from here, you can just open it up and get what you need and then close it, and it is still attached to the back of the sewing machine. So it's a really handy little box that just comes with the Bernina, or at least it came with the Bernina 1080 Special 21 years ago, I think. Turn this over so you can see the back. And I think it is so much better. It just looks exactly the way I want it to look. So I'm very pleased with the color of the thread on the canvas, both pieces of the canvas, and I think the entire thing is just going to be adorable. Let me get this. Now I will need to see how much Warm and Natural I have. So I've decided that instead of ordering more canvas, I have enough canvas to make a heart shape, and I have enough of the heart shape fabric to do a back. So I'm just going to reverse it on mine, and the other three will be canvas with a heart shaped applique. Alright, moving on, I'm just going to go ahead and do my Warm and Natural. Right now I'm going to use a chalk marker, this Chocopel, and just make a few diagonal lines. Let's see, we're going to go 3 inches apart. And I'm kind of using this mat underneath this, the dark gray mat, and my ruler to, oops, shoot, I have to redo this one. That's why I'm using chalk. It's so much easier to just redo. So this is how I will do each one. I have it just basting adhesive, spray and bond to my flimsy. I pressed it with my iron, and now I'm going to, from this side, I'm going to stitch these lines. I don't want to do it this way on my sewing machine. I want to do it this way on my sewing machine. This is the first quilted piece right here. I need to trim off all of these little threads with these, I guess. Okay. The next step would be to take one of the applique pieces, this right here, make sure that I have the heart going in the direction that I wanted it, you know, originally to go, and it is not. So I need to turn this quilted piece this way and then put the heart piece this way. Oh, I see some more thread here. Okay. And you will see that, of course, every time you quilt something, it pulls it up and kind of compresses it a little bit. So the canvas piece is smaller, or excuse me, is larger now than this quilted piece. So I can just kind of center the quilted piece and then decide where I want to stitch. And I will stitch from this side again, making sure that these are right sides together. And then I need to decide where what little area I'm going to leave open. Since I have decided to just turn it right side out and then finish off the opening with a, you know, finish that stitch with the machine stitch all the way around, and then create kind of a little border with another layer of top stitching. Now, a lot of people who sew don't do this step. I find if I don't do this step, I'll just keep on sewing and then I have to unpick. So it's not the end of the world if you forget, but just to save that extra step of unpicking the stitches, just mark it somehow. You could even put clover clips here to stop you from going on. So I'm going to start stitching right here. Okay, so this is where I've stitched at the opening. This has been left open right here. This is what I call that gate. I was talking about with the gate. See how this is just folded in all by itself? I'm not having to push it in, and it is exactly where it needs to be with relation to the rest of the project. And that is because I have this little bit of stitching right here. It just folds it in. So now the next step, of course, would be to press this and get it exactly where I want it. Just press it out, and then I will go all the way around about 1/4 of an inch from the edge, and then I will go all the way around probably 1/2 an inch. So 1/4 of an inch, and then about 1/2 of an inch. Let's see what that would look like on here. So this would be a... Oh, my eyes are playing tricks on me. This would be 1/4, and this would be 1/2. If I wanted to do an inch, that might even be better. A full inch on that second pass. That would be quite decorative. Now I do have to think about my thread choice for this side of the fabric, because I've already used that burgundy right there. But it doesn't mean that I have to. I have some beautiful brown thread that I could use. Alright, so the first of wine and roses table toppers is done. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. There are some inconsistencies, there are some uneven spaces, but they're not so noticeable that it becomes unusable. You're going to have items on this. I find that this little edge here is really cute on both sides. This here and here. I think this side is really cute, and the fabric is extremely durable, and I feel like it would look really nice on just about any table, or even on a sideboard or a hutch if you're using those items for food service, or if you have a vase of flowers. I do this all the time. So it ended up being 15 by 18.5 is the finished size for this one. They're all going to be slightly different, but this is just adorable. I love it, and it's one of my WIPs out of the way. So I think I'll end the video here, because I do have buttons and buttonholes to finish up. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!